All right, let's dive right into this explainer and build a crystal clear, truly unforgettable mental map of India's vast and complex river systems. We're going to explore the literal lifelines of the subcontinent, translating thousands of kilometers of winding water into a structured, visual guide that's going to be super easy for you to remember. To keep things organized and prevent any cognitive overload today, here is our roadmap. We'll cover 1. The anatomy of a river system. 2. The mighty Himalayan rivers. 3. The Ganga Basin. 4. West-flowing peninsula rivers. 5. East-flowing peninsula rivers. And finally 6. Flow patterns and projects. So, let's kick things off with Section 1, Anatomy of a River System, building our foundational vocabulary. Before we trace the rivers themselves, we really need to understand how water actually flows across the land. The crucial point here is that a major river is way more than just a single stream of water. It's a massive network that drains a huge catchment area. Think of it like a giant funnel. A river usually starts at a source, like a high-altitude glacier or a lake, and ends at a sink, which is usually an ocean. Along that journey, smaller rivers join it, which we call tributaries, and sometimes it splits off into branches, called distributaries. In India, these massive networks are categorized by their sheer size into major, medium, and minor basins. And this brings us to the main way we classify Indian rivers today, by where they originate. It's essentially a tale of two systems. Himalayan rivers flow year-round. They're perennial. Why? Because they get a double boost. They are fed by melting glaciers in the north and by regular rainfall. On the flip side, we have the older peninsular rivers down south. These are largely non-perennial. They rely heavily on seasonal monsoon rainfall, which means their water levels can drop significantly or even dry up during the dry seasons. Moving right along to Section 2, the mighty Himalayan rivers, scaling the peaks of the north. 3,120. That massive number is the total length in kilometers of the mighty Indus River. It originates all the way up near the Kailash Range in Tibet, flows northwest through the rugged high-altitude deserts of Ladakh, crosses the line of control into Pakistan, and ultimately drains all the way down into the Arabian Sea. It is a truly epic journey. Now here is where raw geography meets geopolitics. The 1960 Indus Water Treaty mathematically divides these life-giving waters between India and Pakistan. At first glance, if you just count the rivers, it looks like a perfectly even 3-to-3 split, right? But the reality is in the water volume. The western rivers allocated to Pakistan, the Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, actually carry a whopping 80% of the total water volume. Meanwhile, the eastern rivers allocated to India, the Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej, carry the remaining 20%. Next up is Section 3, Heart of India, the Ganga Basin, tracing the nation's most sacred waters. You know, the Ganga doesn't just miraculously start as the Ganga. It's more like a giant puzzle coming together. Let's trace the Panch Prayag, the 5 sacred, step-by-step confluences high up in the mountains of Uttarakhand. The Alaknanda River gathers force, merging first with the Dali Ganga, then the Nandakini, the Pindar, and the Mandakini. But the really critical moment is step 5, Dev Prayag. Here, the Alaknanda finally merges with the Bhagirathi. It is only after this specific, dramatic confluence that the combined stream officially becomes the Ganga, kicking off its epic 2,510-kilometer journey. As the Ganga flows east across the plains, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's fed by major tributaries crashing down from the Himalayas on its left bank, rivers like the Gomti, the Gaghara, and the Gandak. But it also gets a massive influx of water from its right bank. The big one here is the Yamuna. Originating from the Yamunotri Glacier, it's actually the Ganga's longest tributary, flowing for nearly 1,400 kilometers before they finally meet at Prayagraj. You also have older rivers like the Son coming all the way from the peninsular plateau in the south to join the system. But you have to remember, not all these rivers are stable, predictable streams. Take the Kosi River, for example, a major left-bank tributary. It's a highly youthful, restless river rushing down from the high Himalayas of Nepal straight into the flat plains. Because of this incredibly sudden drop in elevation, it carries a massive amount of sediment, which makes its channels incredibly unstable. Its frequent, catastrophic floods and constantly shifting course have earned it a truly tragic nickname, the Sorrow of Bihar. All right, shifting gears to Section 4, west-flowing peninsular rivers, the exceptions that flow towards the Arabian Sea. So here's a really cool geological quirk. The entire Indian peninsula actually has a slight general tilt towards the east. So you'd naturally think all the water goes that way, right? While both the Narmada and Tapi rivers are fascinating exceptions because they completely defy that eastward tilt. How do they do it? They flow strictly west through deep rift valleys, which are basically huge geological faults in the Earth's crust, straight into the Arabian Sea. The Narmada is the longest of these, creating these spectacular Duandar Falls, while the Tapi flows parallel to it just a bit farther south. And unlike the east-flowing rivers, these two end in estuaries, not deltas. And speaking of exceptions, this brings us to a truly mind-bending phenomenon, ephemeral drainage. It's perfectly demonstrated by the Luni River in Rajasthan. The Luni is a rare landlocked river. It originates in the Arvali Hills, flows for nearly 500 kilometers, turns increasingly saline, and then it just vanishes. It literally evaporates right into the salt flats of the Ren of Kutch. It never actually completes its journey to the sea. Absolutely wild. Now for Section 5, East-Flowing Peninsular Rivers, the Grand Deltas of the Bay of Bengal. 1,465 kilometers. That makes the Godavari the absolute longest river entirely within peninsular India. Originating near Nashik in the Western Ghats, it drains a truly massive basin, carving its way across the Deccan Plateau. Because of its sheer scale and significance, it has rightfully earned its revered title as the Dakshin Ganga, which literally translates to the Ganges of the South. As we head even further south, right between the mighty Krishna and Kaveri rivers, we hit a cluster of really important streams flowing out of the Nandi Hills toward the Bay of Bengal. If you're trying to memorize the sequence of these rivers from north to south, here is a super handy memory trick for you. Just remember Pi-Pa-Po, Pennar, Palar, and Ponyar. It's a perfect little mental shortcut. Okay, but this brings us to a really cool geographical mystery. Remember earlier when we established that peninsular rivers are non-perennial? They usually shrink or dry up because they rely strictly on the seasonal monsoon. Well, unlike all those other peninsular rivers, the Kaveri maintains a steady, healthy flow year-round. It's actually considered the only perennial river in all of South India. So how exactly does it pull off this unique feat? The secret is its absolutely perfect geographical positioning. Its upper catchment area, up in Karnataka, gets drenched by the advancing southwest monsoon during the summer. Then, its lower catchment area, down in Tamil Nadu, gets slammed by the retreating northeast monsoons in the winter. Because it acts like a giant funnel that catches heavy rains from both of India's distinct monsoon seasons, its basin is perpetually full. Nature's engineering at its finest. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, Flow Patterns and Projects, where human engineering meets raw geography. Let's do a rapid-fire review and connect all this geography directly to actual human infrastructure, the massive projects you definitely need to know. High up in the north on the Bhagirathi, you have the Tehri Dam, which is India's highest hydropower plant. Out west, harnessing the Narmada, is the Sardar Sarwagar, right near the towering Statue of Unity. Over in the east, the colossal Hirakud Dam sits on the Mahanadi River, acting as the absolute lifeline for the state of Odisha. And down south, you've got the Nagarjuna Sagar Dam, capturing the immense power of the Krishna River, right on the border of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. We've built an incredible, highly structured mental map today, from the glacier-fed giants of the towering Himalayas to the monsoon-dependent arteries of the peninsula. We can clearly see how these waters physically and culturally shape the nation. But it leaves us with one highly critical, really unavoidable question to ponder. As our global climate fundamentally shifts, drastically altering the monsoon patterns and melting the very glaciers that feed these massive systems, will the lifelines that built India's past actually be able to sustain its future? It's definitely something to keep in mind as you continue to explore this fascinating geography. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.